Hello, everyone. Welcome. Hope you're in the right place. Last chance for you to drop out if you feel like this isn't your jam, but I'm going to get going. So I thought this would be a really great place to start because I think this is the mind of all of us in the room today. We're very familiar with the left hand of that page, where we have those outputs, we have those KPIs, we have those daily pressures from the business, from leadership on. That's what we're trying to solve for. And then the asks on the other side of it is really about, well, how do I extract that? How do I get there? And as the title of today's webinar really alludes to, we really want to talk about two things that I think are top of mind for all of us on today's call, and that is customer delight and innovation. These things that we're supposed to obsess over in our realms and get the most out of our teams. And the way that we're supposed to do that is by doing it at pace. We know that pace is everything in this world. Doing it in unity because we do have to work with lots of different teams all pointing in one direction, and the agility in order to do that. And so in our working with lots of leaders in this industry and having to obsess over what it means to extract customer delight and innovation, today is about figuring out what's the breakthrough there. What's the breakthrough really in order to get to a place of true customer delight and innovation? And before we go into that, I thought it'd be good to actually just dip into the worlds of what great delight and what great innovation looks like before we kind of get started as a way to just, and I'm a big fan of exploring other worlds for inspiration. And one of the worlds I thought would be good to explore is the world of F1. Now, you don't need to be a big sports person. You don't need to be a big F1 person to really appreciate this. And apologies, I'll have Alex from our team drop the link in our chat because Formula One is all over the place in terms of rights. So I couldn't embed this video in, but I'll have you watch it in our chat because it is quite literally the shortest video we'll watch today. And it is about the fastest pit stop on record ever recorded, which is sub 2 seconds, which is quite wild when you think about that as a human achievement and as a team achievement. Just to give you a little bit of a backtrack, back in the 90s, as early as the 90s, the average pit stop used to take about 10 seconds. Now, mind you, yes, there was technology in the way of changing tires, and they were also doing more refueling. They stopped refueling, but in this modern era of the pit stop, where it should be shorter because you're just changing it, think about just how incredible it is to stop a car in real time and change all four tires and work as one team and put them all back and to do it in less than 2 seconds. It is wild. And so I hope that you're watching it in the background. Like I said, it's like a minute or so, but it's really just 2 seconds that you need to get on board with. I'm an F1 fan, not so much lately, but I'm trying to keep up with the races, but I'm amazed at how much. I always thought this was an individual sport of drivers, but I'm actually amazed at how much of a team sport it is. And there is real no encapsulation of a team working together than in a pit stop. But I'm bringing this up really because it actually just talks about the state of innovation. And I felt like this was a really great equivalency to what's going on in our worlds, where we're trying to extract so much innovation all the time and this concept of always on innovation. Whereas, we had this golden age of, Silicon Valley where people would line up for the next iPhone launch and talk about this massive stride in iOS and massive stride in software and hardware. And whereas today, no one is really that excited about a new phone launch because we're talking about better cameras, thinner phones, and doing that for about 5 years in a row. And it feels like we're in that moment right now, certainly in the customer education space, where we're being asked to innovate every single day, but it feels like there isn't too much to extract. And so just wanted to give you how hard it is to get to a sub 2 seconds pit stop stat, but also just how much actual innovation has occurred over the last decade or so. So since 2013, when they formally started tracking this new era of pit stops, it's only moved 0.12 seconds in over a decade. And I'll share with you some stats of just how much the amount of money gets invested into these teams, which is just ridiculous by all means. There is a comparison here because obviously a lot of us work for high profile organizations where there is money to invest in innovation and delight. But it goes to show that it's kind of like a pit stop. There's only so much innovation to extract. But that puts even more pressure on our teams to be able to perform and how much it actually involves being able to pull it off. I'll give you another example too. Anyone here a fan of The Bear? One of my favorite shows. It's a show that talks about what greatness in a restaurant looks like, and it follows this character that's kind of going through a whole bunch of stuff as sort of a tortured chef trying to deliver excellence. But I wanted to share this screenshot, which is inspired really by the book on the right, as you see, where on the kitchen they have a plaque that says every second counts. Now, for any of us today who've had the opportunity and the privilege to go to like a really high-end meal, you understand the synchronicity of it. You understand the choreography of what fine dining is all about, where really every second does count, whether it's about the cook of your fish or whether it's about the presentation of your meal. It is literally about seconds. And the bear is a great sort of inspiration to talk about what delight and innovation looks like in a place like the hospitality world. And most of this show is actually inspired by this book written by Will Guidera, who is the executive chef of 11 Madison Park, one of the best restaurants in the world. And he wrote this amazing book about service culture and what it means to truly deliver unreasonable hospitality. And this concept of every second counts, which is what you find in most high-end kitchens today, is really this obsession over delight and how delight can be found in the seconds. Now, why am I talking about the worlds of Formula One? Why am I talking about the worlds of high-end dining? Is because the thing that we see in both of those stories is the thing that actually is true for us. They both need to deliver innovation and delight. And for them, every second counts. Every second counts. And I think that's the same for us too. Every second counts too. But does it count for us in the right way as it does for them? And what these two worlds are really obsessed about, when you think about it, is how do we create a high performance culture? Because you can obsess over saying we need to be innovative every single day, but you saw in that video just how much teams need to be in sync to pull off that high innovation effort of doing something like a sub 2 second pit stop. Look how many people are there on that in that picture that all need to work together. And just the tiniest slip up is the difference between innovation and just surviving. And if we're thinking about our daily asks of our teams, the asks to be agile, to be more unified, to be more innovative every single day, what we're really asking for is high performance. And today I really want to help hopefully unpack and bring a new mindset to what it means to create high performance in your team. And really how we need to start getting back, certainly as leaders, as drivers of programs, we need to get back to places of creating the conditions for high performance and not just high productivity. Because when we talk about, every second counts, it can't just be in the way that we think it is through a productivity lens. We need to think about it from a performance lens. And what's our role in creating the conditions for high performance? Because if you create the conditions for high performance, you will create the conditions for delight. And I hope that by today, I can convince you of that because I know that's what all of us are chasing for in the room today. And this is how you're going to unlock it out of your team. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Josh. I'm the Chief Creative and Learning Officer for Sponge Group. I've had the privilege of a lot of various different roles in my career, working with a bunch of industries and topics. Of course, customer education programs with large tech organizations being a key part of it. And my real MO, I guess, in the world is just about how we can unlock the value of learning within organizations to really deliver business impact. That's the best meal I've ever had in my life. It's a bowl of ramen in Tokyo. Happy to do questions at the end solely about ramen. I'm more than happy to talk about that at length. That's my favorite Led Zeppelin album. And I am officially on a 3,000-day Duolingo learning streak. About 90% German, and towards the last little bit, I've been doing chess because that's been kind of fun. Feels like a very typical millennial dad trope that I've leaned into, but I'm enjoying it because, who doesn't want to get a bit better at chess? I also just did my year in review with Duolingo, and I'm in the top 1% of Duolingo learners. So still waiting for some swag for them. Haven't heard a thing from them. And like I mentioned in the previous slide, I really want to help communicate today that our job as leaders in this space is really about how we create conditions for high performance and not just high productivity. So let's create that amazing pit stop team that we know lies in your team. We're out of the gate, and I don't think we'll take up all of our time today. That being said, I tend to ramble, so we might just finish exactly on time. But I wanted to cover a few things with you today. One is just to understand what this always-on ask for innovation every day looks like and delight looks like in the context of today's workplace. If you haven't heard about it yet, I want to touch on the concept of Generation Numb, this flagship piece of research we've been working on that really talks about today's workforce and how that's just another obstacle for how we need to unlock more out of our teams to deliver delight, but also then give you the strategies to restore that energy, to bring it back, and to create that environment for high performance. So let's go back to those pressures on how hard it is to deliver delight, to be honest with you. And we know that delivering delight is the daily ask of the teams. And what's getting in the way of doing that? Well, one is, and I've mentioned this before, is that it seems like we've just got finer margins of innovation to extract. And I mentioned the pit stop example early on. This is the payroll, at least it was a few years ago that put kind of caps on it now, spending caps now. But this was the payroll of the top teams in Formula One. Just ridiculous amounts of money to be able to essentially just extract a few seconds off a lap. Now, this is high-end sport, this is high-performance sport, but it feels like an equivalency over here of just the amount of money we invest to be able to get innovation out of our teams and to deliver customer innovation, and how hard it is to actually be able to do. So we're working with sort of quite diminishing returns of what we can get out of ROI for innovation, which puts a premium on actually getting our team in the right conditions to be innovative. So we're kind of working against the big leaps of innovation that's ahead of us. But I think the other part of it too is, well, the world is in a different place right now, and certainly the word of the certainly of the year for me is enshittification. And we're seeing this everywhere as consumers. We're seeing this everywhere as anyone that's just daily users of social media, the internet. The headlines are everywhere, whether it's about how you shop online to getting AI slop or AI generated content, the pushback towards that, the price increases on our favorite things. There's just sort of an erosion of the things that we love, particularly in the tech industry, particularly on the internet, that's kind of working against us. And like I said, we feel it as consumers, but for those of us that have to build products and develop feature sets and upgrades for our customers, we've actively got enshittification working against us. That's increasing distrust, increasing skepticism, and also plopping up more competition. That can be used to drive down, adoption rates and loyalty rates. And so it's in the headlines. We all know it, we all feel it. It is a key factor that's working against why it's so hard to be able to deliver delight, because it feels like delight's kind of hard to go around these days. And so we've got innovation that's hard to extract. We've got, enshittification and sort of the pressures of AI that we need to move forward. But then the last factor that I think is most pertinent for today is just the constant change and transformation landscape within our organizations. And so as organizations keep shifting, we often have this land on our email inboxes and ask to be more customer centric, to deliver more delight. And then what's our response from our teams? Well, it's something like this, where we just kind of say, if you'd like me to, I'd do it. And there's this sense of kind of being in survival mode. When we've been asked to create delight every single day and innovate every day, it seems like we're not reading the room the right way. And this actually ties in really well with what we've been talking about internally. And like I said, we've launched a big white paper around this. And that is what's going on in the world right now and what's going on in the workplace. So at home, we've got geopolitical uncertainty, we've got a cost of living crisis. We all know the price of bread and eggs these days. We're still in a post-pandemic recovery. We're still trying to figure out what the world looks like there. We're oversaturated by our digital lives. And then, of course, we know the larger kind of things looming behind us in terms of war and climate change. And then at work, tied to that post-pandemic recovery, we're still trying to recapture some of the value that's been lost there. So pressure on productivity, coming back to what I said earlier about it seems like as leaders, all we are obsessed about right now is productivity as opposed to performance. So how do we recapture some of that value? We're trying to still navigate hybrid work, how we return to work. And on one side, AI is supposed to be this amazing tool for value creation. But on the other side, there's a big fear that all of us, it's going to take our job. And so, whether we're talking about a disengagement crisis or we're talking about a loneliness epidemic, the combination of what's going on in the world and what's going on in the workplace is just leading us to try and drown out all of this noise. And the very mere fact of showing up to work every day is a struggle, and that's something that we just need to lean into. And we call it Generation Numb. And so don't worry too much about screenshotting this because it's all in a white paper that you can download later today. This is sort of the key infographic that encapsulates sort of the state of the workforce that we're in right now. And this has been off the back of a lot of research that we've done, both from a meta-analysis of larger works, but also from our own independent research of what we constitute as numbness, whether it's cynicism, exhaustion, overwhelm, detached, or seeking community. There's signals everywhere that point to, well, our people aren't at our best right now. And so there's an awkwardness in the ask of saying, well, I need you to deliver delight every single day, when really this is the state that people are in. Whether it's about overwhelm from the digital world that makes us simultaneously underwhelmed, or whether it's about a loneliness epidemic at work right now that people are craving community and they're really trying to connect with each other on a human level, or whether it's about cynicism, where the phrase that I use a lot when I'm talking about Generation Numb is, how can you expect me to get excited about our customers if I'm not sure if I'm going to have a job tomorrow or if I'm worried about putting food on the table? Now, this is some heavy stuff, and I'm not going to necessarily back down from sort of how heavy the message is. But the good piece about this is that we can actually lean into this. Probably the most important signal of all of this is just how exhausted our people are by change. And this is actually a stat from Gartner that talks about sort of the volume of change that most organizations have gone through in the last 10 years or so. Whereas in 2016, at that point, people had probably encountered about 2 large-scale enterprise changes in their career. By the time you've reached 2024, that number's reached 13. And so you can imagine, with the volume of change increasing, and we know that we live in very unpredictable times in terms of the economy and where organizations need to shift, the willingness to change and the want to change just dramatically diminishes. And so once again, you are asking a lot of your people, and what are you really going to get out of them? This is why we need to lean into how we mobilize numbness in our teams and how we extract the most out of them to really answer that question. Because the question for daily delight hasn't changed, right? It hasn't changed in 10 years. I think the expectation of being able to say, hey, we need to innovate and be more customer obsessed and we need to move at pace is just the hallmarks of the tech space, to be honest with you. But I think what has changed is the diminishing returns of innovation gains. That skepticism and shifting expectations from things like enshittification, but also increased competition. But finally, it's about your team's energy. And I think of all the things that is in your sphere of control as a leader, 1 and 2 might feel quite difficult, but 3 very much feels in your sphere of control. And so I want to spend the rest of today talking about how actually we can keep things in our sphere of control. There's so much that we can't control with what's going on in the world, the larger trends of the workplace. But what is us as team leaders who have the remit to unlock the most out of our teams? What can we do to bring that dynamism back to our team? Because once again, and I just wanted to have this as a reminder, is that when you have an ask and your boss has an ask of you that we just need to obsess over our customers and deliver delight, remember that delight cannot be created in survival mode. All right, so how do we have a breakthrough? So a key part of the mobilizing Generation Numb piece is what we would call the remedy to the malady. And so what I'm going to do is just walk you through some key concepts here, because I do think it'll be rather helpful for you to understand the tactics that we would use to unlock the most out of your team to get them to that place of high performance. The most important thing to understand about how we can tackle this in terms of reviving the dynamism in your team is that you need to take it stage by stage. And so it's if you were to visualize Maslow's hierarchy, we can't pretend that our people are all the way at the top with us. If anything, they're all the way near the bottom that are just focusing on their survival. So you need to guide people through me, us, and it. Start with personal priorities. Think about how you can build community again and regain community amongst your people, and then get people focused around the work and the challenge. But to jump straight to it feels like quite a leap to be able to go there. And you need to see where you are as an organization. So part of, as I'm walking you through it, is to also ask yourself, at what stage is my organization or my team in? Is it more in the me stage, more in the us stage, more in the it stage? Working with organizations of a lot of different varieties, we see them in all kinds of sizes. So some are firmly in the it, some are firmly in the me. So understand as we're walking through these concepts, which one is most relevant to you, and what can you do in that particular stage to unlock them and bring them over to the next stage. So the first one is about me, meeting personal priorities. And if what you're getting from your team mostly feels like inertia to that meme about saying, hey, I need you to be more customer centric, just know that it's most likely that they're just operating in a place of self-preservation. So what does that mean? Strip away the gloss, be really radical in your comms, be really radically transparent, have that adult to adult communication, and start it with the basics, clarity of role, expectations of role. And I wanted to share a few of the tactics. I'm not going to go over all of the tactics because they are in the white paper. By the way, there's a customized version of the Mobilizing Generation Numb piece just for the customer education world. So I've got a link for that at the very end. So don't worry about capturing all of these because the tactics I'm sharing with you are right there as a nice little takeaway for you. But of all the enablement tactics that you can see here, whether it's about enabling managers better or about making CX more of a career building opportunity, the one I wanted to mention was about a very practical one about how we convert KPIs to named behaviors. And there's something that gets lost, certainly in times of big change. There's a disconnect between how change is communicated as a leadership team and what that actually means for the front line. So take the time to not just talk about churn rates and adoption and how we get customers on board with new features and onboarding all that kind of stuff, but talk about, and I would say that's kind of more lag indicators of success. Focus on the lead indicators. So what are the behaviors that you want people to focus on that you know is going to indicate what the lag indicators that you're looking for in the future? And then one of the ways that we do it is we use what we call the sponge impact canvas. And you're getting a little bit of a glimpse there. It might be a little small to read on the screen, but once again, we have this as a tool that we're happy to talk to you about afterwards, where we really ground the initiative of what you're trying to accomplish. And we focus very quickly on the from to shifts in terms of behaviors. And then we spell out what desired behavior looks like in key performance moments. Once again, focus on me, focus on my role, and give me utmost clarity of my role. Because you can't expect people to just say, lean into delight, lean into innovation, without giving them a clear playbook for how you get there. So we use the sponge impact canvas in order for us to get real clarity on what behaviors look like. And then we even spell out how we would even observe those behaviors in the wild, in those key performance moments. But it feels like an obvious tactic, but I can't tell you how often we've encountered silo teams or teams that aren't working together simply because they just don't know what is expected of them. And I'll give you a really quick example of that from a customer that we've been working with this year in the B2B SaaS world, where our job was to come in and support their team to reduce siloed behavior, but also just to unlock more high performance. And what we did was a couple of things. One is we brought precision and clarity to their roles. And so what you're seeing here is a bit of a mock-up of us defining by role a sort of highly visual user-friendly type racy exercise to say, this is your role, but also in the flow of the customer journey, here's your role and here's what you need to do and here's how you interact with other roles. Once again, very much going back to basics, but it just illuminates how sometimes clarity of communication is so important when you're trying to build teams back up. Because we know a key reason of siloed behavior is just not having clarity of role and thinking, well, it's this person's role, it's not that person's role. So our job was to come in and be that outside observer and say, this is what we heard. Is that right? Or let's navigate through what is the right alignment and consensus on a singular vision towards the customer and what that looks like. Part of this also was we helped this customer reconfigure their governance model. So it wasn't just about building a program and having it filled with content, but also about how we're going to future-proof it. So on the top right there, we actually went through a series of different types of governance frameworks that would work for them. And then we just went through a process of selecting the one that best worked. And then we locked that in and said, this makes the most sense for the type of customer journey that you want to have in order to keep that going. So just a back to basics, but I can't understate the value of it depending on where your organization is in that journey of how important this could be to just have teams fall on common ground to say, right, at least I know my role, and at least I know the way I move forward in working with other teams as well too. So that's a story from the B2B SaaS world of how we can do something in the me stage that is meeting personal priorities so that at the very least people have a very clear sense of where they are and where they need to go. The next one is about restoring connection. And something that is really illuminated in our research was just how much, with all the pressures of AI in our world on productivity, navigating the hybrid world, and we're not only just in a loneliness epidemic worldwide, but specifically at work, people are craving connection. People are craving community. People are craving connection with each other. And so a key part of how we bring our teams back together is your job as a leader is to think about how we make room for human moments. Now, this is a range of a scale of a challenge, depending on the type of the team that you lead. We don't always have the opportunity to bring people in face to face. A lot of us lead really globally dispersed teams. So the tactics that we have in here are a combination of face to face, but also about how we do things at scale and on a digital level as well too. But when you're thinking about making room for human moments, one, encourage interdependency. There is so much power in helping people recognize the talent in each other and being able to work for each other. So much of our battle as leaders in trying to extract high performance is that we tend to think of it as sort of like a soloed activity. But let me tell you, and I think we can all relate to this, there's no motivation better than when you are trying to work for the person right next to you and not letting them down or trying to create something together that you both have pride in. There's true power in restoring connection in order to lift people up to deliver great work. And once again, of all the different enablement tactics that make a lot of sense, specifically for the customer education sector, whether it's about getting more hands-on with the product themselves, we tend to kind of just not see the forest for the trees, and maybe we just need to spend more time with the product, or whether it's about team switch days to have more empathy about role. I wanted to touch on a couple of examples, and that is about really, and we're seeing sort of a renaissance of more face-to-face time these days. One example is about holding marquee face-to-face events for teams and customers as well too. And for those of us whose products are primarily digital, we never really see our product, quite literally. We never actually, not our product, we never see our customer in the face, in the flesh. And so I highly encourage you that, if you're trying to get better feedback, certainly from your advocates, from those that are most loyal to your product, have an event, host an event where you get to have face-to-face time where the people behind the product get to meet the people that use the product. And you'd be surprised what would happen if you put the both of them in a room to extract the things that we're all just sort of lost in the churn of how do we get more customer insights? How do we react to customer needs better? Sometimes a little old school is the best way forward. I just wanted to give you a good example of that, and that's obviously more in the retail tech sector. But Apple, its big shift towards a town square model of its retail stores. So if you've walked into an Apple store lately, you've realized that it feels kind of different. It's got couches set up over there. It's got studios laid out. And it's by design because it's really about creating a space for people as opposed to a place to just purchase products. So they've created opportunities for entrepreneurs to get together and work together. It's become like a hosting event, a community space as well too. So it's a way for them to interact with their customers, but not have to do it in such a transactional way of, well, I'm only going to be selling to you. So just an example of what it could be to have a face-to-face event. Now, obviously, Apple has stores to do, but it shouldn't be too much of a lift for you to think about a situation where you could actually invite some of your customers and, if I'm thinking about the realm of those that are most excited or biggest advocates for your products, invite them into your next big launch. Give them a very offline insider access to what that could look like. They'll get excited, you get some real-time feedback, and you'll also get the team energized by meeting the customers that they're trying so hard to impress. And I wanted to share another example of how we did this for internal teams in terms of bringing people together, creating more community. This is for a consumer goods organization in the food and beverage industry. And we were working with their global capability team. And really the brief here was to build more unity as a team, give them a renewed sense of purpose. And of all the different topics that we need to address for the day, empathy was a key part of it. So how do we develop empathy? So a bold concept that we really offered here was we've got 3 days with a global team. We are making the investment for face-to-face time. What if we just did the entire thing without slides? So no PowerPoint decks, no technology actually. So no one was there on laptops. It was just everyone talking to each other in the room, old school Post-it notes, workbooks, all those types of things. And the result was high energy. And I wanted to share. I was there delivering the camp for the team, and I wanted to share the quote that really stood out for me was an individual saying, "I just forgot that we could still do good work without a laptop," and the energy that comes from it. There was not only just an agility in being able to say, well, what does the group want to be able to discuss? But it was also just really harnessing the power of face-to-face time in a really powerful way. Like I said, no technology. And in fact, what we did to really kind of drive home the value of empathy is we took a half day and we did something offsite. So we actually went to the aquarium and we did sort of an empathy walk where we walked the team. We broke them into teams and we gave everyone a persona, whether it was a grandfather in a wheelchair, or whether it was a single mother, or whether it was a teacher, or whether it was a 12-year-old student. And we said, walk through the aquarium through their eyes and tell me what you see and how different is the experience. And it was just a really great way to teach empathy and to get a team to work together in a very unorthodox way, and also with no technology, which I think was really important. And so people were paying attention to the height of the barriers that you would hold. People are looking up and down. People are looking around for where's a good place for me to park my wheelchair? Where's a good place for me to stay with my kids to get them aligned? And all of a sudden we were getting empathy for our end users that there was just no way we would be able to do on a Miro board or be able to do over a Zoom session. So this was just a great sort of moment of how we build community, but also get work done. And then lastly, the piece that I would really say as a reflection to all the leaders in the room today is that this wouldn't have happened without really bold senior sponsorship. It's really easy to say, oh, but we've got 3 days worth of content to get through. So here's a 300 slide deck that we need to just get people through. But rather we stripped it down and we said less is more. And we took some risks and the risk paid off. And so having that bold senior sponsorship is a key part for how you can start to build more community and bring in tactics that, and I talk a lot about numbness. The very definition of numb is about being habituated to a certain set of stimuli. And the only way to break through with that is to give people a new set of stimuli. So this is something that we did that couldn't have happened without the right senior sponsorship. Okay. Are we ready for stage 3? So far, you've been working with me. You've been building towards us. The last stage, which is, the stage that we all want to be at, once you've taken care of personal priorities, once you've started to rebuild connection and rebuild community, get people working for each other, is to now get people rallied around the cause. And the line that we use very particularly is that we know that customer centricity is an endurance sport. that really requires sprint energy. I think in any conversation I've ever had with a customer education leader, the one thing they've always said immediately is pace. So all of this sounds great, Josh, but we need to move at pace. We need to move at pace. We need to move at pace. And there's something about high performance. And we saw this example from the Formula One team to to the elite restaurant team. They both have to move at pace. And every second counts for both of those worlds. So why wouldn't every second count for us? And the difference there is about what you need to do to create a high performance culture so that you can move at pace. So your job as a leader is to find that fuel. Your job is to create that environment and then fuel that environment. That includes breaking old patterns and forming new ones, but also about building the right yield time. I always think about and I classify innovation and delight in the realms of things like high creativity required at work. And I always think of the creative act as breathing. And we tend to obsess over creativity as something that's always output focused, always output focused. I need to do something creative, creative, creative. But so much of creativity is not just about breathing out, but about breathing in. So where are you going to get the place to inspire your teams, to bring in new stimuli, new ideas, so that the innovation feels like a natural connection as opposed to something that feels forced every single day? So when we're thinking about the tactics in the it stage, they really are about how do we evoke imagination? How do we get people to a new place of collaboration and extract new ways of thinking? So one of the tactics really is about how you can create rituals that shift from reacting to anticipating. We know that so much of what our team's time is bogged down is just responding to customer complaints, requests, and just kind of always reacting and chasing the customer as opposed to anticipating their needs. But there's so much delight in anticipation, but we need to create the space, the carve out the space for us to truly and genuinely anticipate needs because it becomes a much more delightful process for our customers, but also for ourselves. Another tactic I wanted to touch upon is the idea of embracing play principles to drive customer innovation. I'll touch on that example in a second. But before I get there, I mentioned there's a huge part of being in the it state about just being inspired. The last tactic that is part of the it stage is about just understanding that there's actually a whole world of inspiration out there and just to lean into it. And when we're talking about building cultures of customer centricity, you're not the only one who's doing it, actually. And just remember that. And some of the best organizations that I've worked with, they actually are in lockstep with other leading organizations that aren't competitors that help them understand that they chase after the same kind of challenges. So I know BMW and McDonald's work together, for example, which feels like a weird type of collaboration, but it just kind of goes to show you that sometimes a collision of different worlds can really give you new and exciting realms. And when we're talking about customer centricity, whether it's about the hospitality world or the brick and mortar retail world, flagship stores, there's a lot of places that you can go to that go, well, how do they think about customer centricity? What does it mean to really be customer focused for them? So if you've got the opportunity to invest in an experience, and it doesn't need to be a lot of money, that's the other thing as well too. Go find something in your backyard where you're finding people who are just as obsessed about customer centricity as you are. And the example that is always inspiring is Disney's Imagineers. And if you've never heard about Disney Imagineers, they're basically the engine behind all the magic of Disney. Talk about a job to have, right? But whether it's about the design of their theme parks to the waterfalls on their cruise ships to the music that is designed for all the rides they need to do, the Imagineers, well, they build the dreams that so many of us love to be a part of and participate in. They've been studied really well. There's books on them as well too. And then of course, if you need if your only takeaway from today is I went to a webinar and someone from Sponge told me I need to take my whole team to Disney World, then mission accomplished because that's just a place for you to get more inspiration for your team of what creating delight really looks like. And Disney is another example of an organization that's been really well studied about the process of delivering delight, what it looks like. But you need to step out of your own sort of inner circle of what you think delight and innovation really looks like. And so get inspired by the world around you. And so I mentioned embracing play principles to drive new customer innovation. And the last example that I wanted to share with you was a workshop that we did with a client in the professional services firm. They're sort of one of those big box professional services firm that you're probably familiar with. And they asked us to just basically create a workshop to help unlock creative thinking within their teams. Pretty simple ask, but not so simple in terms of unlocking it. Once again, you could show up and deliver, I don't know, a 30 slide deck on acronyms and technical definitions of creativity, but you're not necessarily going to get anything out of the team. So when you need to unlock play principles, what we actually did was, well, first of all, we had a session on debunking even the term creatives. So there was sort of an irony and a meta exercise of being someone who came in to say, I need to help make you be more creative. But then also saying, well, actually, we need to stop thinking about the world in a binary sense of creatives and non-creatives. Actually, every single one of you can be creative, and that's the whole point of today, to then using principles of play to actually unpack the science of not creativity, but the science of novel thinking and what it means to do ideation at speed, ideation at scale. So you can see here the connections to things like pace. It can feel sometimes that creative thinking might be a slow and big process, when actually creative thinking can be incredibly agile, incredibly iterative, and can move at pace. And so that was one of the things that we wanted to convey there. We did it through a bunch of scenarios to help people just build more muscles creatively and give them the confidence that they could do it. And probably the best part of this story for me is what you're looking at, the picture on the right side there is their performance job aid. And so rather than give people, once again, we need to break through the apathy in stage 3. So you need to really kind of lean on all the strategies at your disposal, rather than give people sort of a 6-page booklet on these are the 6 strategies to help you be more creative. We put it on a stress ball, a stress cube. So then actually when you're in a bit of a rut, you're trying to figure out what you need to do, take that stress cube, throw it against the wall, and wherever it lands is a strategy to help you break through for better ideas, for reframing the idea as well too. So just an example, once again, of ways that you can break through the apathy with your team through principles of play, but also to unlock their imagination in different ways. All right. I've been moving at speed today, but I hope that you've got at least not just a mindset for focusing on high performance and not just productivity, because we know it's so easy to focus on productivity, but to also get a sense of some real life examples that can help you move the needle with your teams. Now, there's sort of 3 things that it would be great for you to take away from today. The first one is just to understand how hard the ask for delight is today. Whether it's about how hard it is to do because there's only so much innovation left to extract, or about the forces that are working against us to even just be delightful in these days. But remember that of all the things that you can control, know that team culture is the one you can control. And it's so easy to feel a bit helpless when you're just bogged down by pace and reacting to customers to think that none of this is in your control, when actually what you can unlock in terms of the culture of your team is the thing that is most going to help you deliver delight. But the way that you do that is you need to tackle it in stages. Tackle it through me, through us, through it. And I walked you through the 3 stages. Don't worry about remembering it. It's all nicely packaged in a white paper you'll be able to download by the end of the day. But believe me when I say that if you those that lean into it, that take this seriously, it gets them the sustained competitive advantage that you've been looking for. And from all the conversations that we've had with leaders that are obsessing over customer centricity and delight and just trying to get it somehow out of their teams, this is the thing that you're looking for that competitive advantage. And it is about sustained competitive advantage, because this isn't about how you can momentarily extract it, because teams are already exhausted and are in survival mode. This is about enduring a competitive advantage. And I know that's the piece that we're all chasing. Now, I know you're probably sitting after 45 minutes with me and saying, okay, Josh, this is fantastic. Now can I get back to my real work? Can I get back to focusing on our customers? But I hope what I've convinced you today is actually this is the job. This is your job. This is the job that needs to be done, because you need to work through your teams to deliver customer success and customer delight. And if you don't have a great plan for your team, you will always just be chasing your customers and chasing delight. So if you think that this is something that can sit on the side of the table or nice to have, my message to you is that the thing that you're really trying to achieve can only happen through your team. And so the question to hopefully leave you with today is, when are you going to stop chasing pace? And when are you actually going to start influencing it? Me, us, it, lean into those tactics. Give your teams the personal priorities that they're looking for, the community they're looking for, and those moments of breaking through the noise, breaking through the apathy that's going to excite them. Get that breathing in moment of inspiration to deliver that next customer delight. That is how you start influencing the pace and setting the pace against your competition. I told you that I would leave you with more time, and here I am delivering you with more time. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for your time and energy. I know it's a really busy time of year, and so I just really appreciate it. If anything resonated with you today, feel free to get in touch with me over LinkedIn. I did promise we have this special customer education edition of Mobilizing Generation Numb. Just pull out your phone and you can grab the link straight from there and download it. Everything that you mentioned here, that was mentioned today, is all in the piece, but in a lot more detail. And if any of this stuff inspires you or you find is particularly relevant, by all means, reach out to me directly and I'm happy to talk about it a bit more.